Well, hi church family, I'm back again this week with my third and final video sharing some of my thoughts on why our words matter. In the first video, a couple weeks ago, I proposed that we Christians must do a better job of filtering our words according to Jesus' statement that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. In the second video, last week's, I explained that while a better filter does a good job, it doesn't fix everything because the problem is not just our words. The heart of our problem is the problem of our heart. The words we speak or type are an overflow of what's taken root in our hearts. So we must ask God to create in us a clean heart and to renew and transform us from the inside out. I hope that challenged you. I hope you took some time to do that. Today, I want to share with you some concluding thoughts about what our words should sound like. Now, even if you've heard me say this already, it bears repeating. Our words matter. They have the power to build up or to tear down, to bless or to curse, to make a positive or a negative impact on somebody's soul. That means that as followers of Christ, we have a responsibility to make the most of all the words that we speak with every opportunity that we get. And we need to learn how to do that. Now, the Bible has plenty to say about our words, but today I have time to just share one of these passages with you. That passage is 1 Peter 4, verses 10 and 11. Now, a little context here. 1 Peter was written to first century Christians who found it difficult to live for Christ in a culture that was increasingly hostile towards the Christian faith. So what Peter wrote to them then seems to have an increasing relevance for us today. The verses that we're going to read today are in the context of how to live well in Christian community. And Peter teaches that real fellowship actually hinges on stewardship. And here's what 1 Peter 4, 10 through 11 says. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. And then after that, Peter goes on to express a couple other areas of gifting that we should use. Now, some Bible scholars here view serving and speaking in this context, in this passage, as spiritual gifts that God gives to only some of his people as the Spirit determines. But I actually think I disagree with that here. See, Jesus taught that serving is something that all his followers should do. And of course, speaking, note it doesn't say teaching or preaching, it says speaking. Well, that's something that we all do. Some of us too much, probably. So let's take a look here at this passage about why our words matter, according to this passage. Now, let me point out to you briefly three things that I notice here. First of all, our words matter because God designed them to be used to serve others. Now, this is interesting because we often use our words to do the very opposite. To draw attention to ourselves, to build ourselves up, to serve ourselves. So let me ask you, when was the last time that you consciously thought about how you could actually serve somebody else by the words you speak to them? To serve others with our words would be to add value to them, to build them up, to love them. Our words are a gift to us from God. And we can give our words as a gift to others. Secondly, our words matter because they can be a vehicle for grace. Now, Peter says to be a faithful steward of God's grace in its various forms. And clearly, according to this passage, our words, speaking, can be one of the forms that God's grace takes. Isn't that cool? Grace is God's undeserved favor, his mercy, his forgiveness that we don't deserve and cannot earn. Now, our words can be a vehicle of this same grace by expressing favor and mercy and forgiveness. Now, Christians, unfortunately, are often known for speaking condemning, judging, critical words. But if we will be intentional about being good stewards or managers or caretakers of God's grace with our words, then maybe we can become known for the way that we speak encouraging, forgiving, and gracious words. Third, our words matter because they reflect God Himself. Now keep in mind the context of Peter's letter here. Christians living in a hostile culture, one where the people are antagonistic towards the Christian faith. And Peter is teaching, I think, that the words that we speak in our world are often interpreted by this world and culture as having come from God Himself. Now why would they assume that? Well, because we claim that God is at the center of our world and we are following Him. Well, it makes sense then that what we say would reflect what we believe, or rather who we believe in. Now look, the world seems to get that. Why don't we? Our words have the potential to point somebody to God or repel them away from Him, so choose your words very carefully. I have one final thought to share on the topic, and it's not an original thought. In a devotional I was reading just a couple of weeks ago, theologian and pastor A.W. Tozer wrote as an admonition, really, to preachers that whenever they preach, they should do so being conscious of the potential impact of their words, especially in an American culture where people are so used to seeing and hearing an artificial version of the Christian life. Now, Tozer's advice to preachers is of great relevance to all of us, honestly, and particularly to our topic today. He wrote this: "Speak as one who will not have long to speak before being called to judgment, and then the people will know they are hearing a voice instead of a mere echo." Well, that's really the challenge for all of us, isn't it? In a culture that promotes and thrives on divisive, critical, discouraging words, choose instead to be a steward of God's grace and a promoter of peace. Your words matter. Choose them carefully. Be a voice, not a mere echo. Thank you again for tuning in and for learning and for growing together with us. Thank you again for being your pastor, for the privilege of getting to be your pastor. I hope to see you all soon. Have a good week.